Hi, I'm Tyler Wally, and this is the Pit Boss. In this episode of the Pit Boss, we're going to go through how to connect your smart and monitoring breather and valve to the radio here using the dedicated COM ports that are on each of the devices. They're very quick and easy connections to make. They're just quarter turns on the devices and a threaded turn on the radio, and you can be in and out of that pit in less than a minute. I'd like to start by noting that it's going to be easier to feed the radio end of the cable through the conduit up to the radio. Due to the split connection here, you're not going to be able to get this to pass through your conduit. So you want to feed your radio end up into where you have your radio mounted, and you will see little guides both on the pin and the COM port here. You're going to line those up and you'll feel it seat. Once it seats, you just thread the connector on. Finger tight is all you need to do here. You don't need any wrenches or any tools to make these connections. As far as the component ends of the cables go, they're color coded. So you'll have your blue cable here, and that will match the blue on the back of the breather. And then you have your red cable, which will match the red on the side of the valve. One thing I'd like to note about the new breather compared to a standard ball float is that the ball float runs the risk of getting tangled or stuck inside of your sump. Whereas with the new breather, as water pressure builds, it will press against the diaphragm inside of the new breather. The diaphragm will press against the switch, which will send your signal back to the radio and then out to your smart or monitoring system. We'll start with the breather connection. Now there are two guides on these cable ends here. You can see the two guides on the inside of the lock nut, as well as the guide up by the pins, and those will line up with the guides on the COM port. So you can start by lining those two up to make things easier to connect to the back of the breather itself. And then once you get those pins seated, you'll feel them seat down. Then you will turn the quarter turn lock nut to tighten it down, and you've made your connection to the breather. One thing I'd like to point out before we go any further is the difference between the older style magnet that we used versus the new updated pressure switch that we use with the COM port. Here you can see the magnet, and what we're trying to avoid here with the new pressure switch is the opportunity for a misalignment during valve rebuilds, debris building up, magnets rusting out. We've had customers report over 165,000 valve cycles with the new pressure switch and no issues at all. It's actually located inside of the lower housing of the valve, and as the valve is closed, it will seat onto the pressure switch itself. Then as the valve fires, it releases off of the switch, and that is the signal that's sent back through the radio to your station. It's just a much more reliable connection to make. The valve connects the exact same way as the breather. You have your two guides on your cable end that line up with the guides on the valve end. And then once you feel that cable seat down onto those pins, it's finger tight with the quarter turn nut there. And now all your devices are connected to your radio. Thank you for watching this episode of The Pit Boss. If you have any questions, you can give us a call here at AirVac. The number is 1-800-AIRVAC9, and follow the prompts to the service department. I'll get you in touch with one of us. Thanks again.